Hello and welcome again to part 2 of this explanation. I'm thinking of creating my own YouTube channel or maybe joining Twitch. I don't know. Okay, so we're going to continue with the same time, subject. We were discussing about interactions, right? We were studying how trophic levels and trophic chains and food chains explain how these organisms interact in an ecosystem. And we also talk about food pyramids or trophic pyramids and how this model help us to understand what happens when we remove a carnivore from an environment or when we reduce the area of producers and there's not enough food available for everybody. And today we're going to keep on that line and we're going to explain a little bit more about these interactions. These are called community interactions because if you remember the ecological levels, I'm going to put it here so you can remember. Ecological levels. We start with populations. That means it's the same species. Then a community, that's when we're talking about different species. Then an ecosystem when we take into account not living parts. And then we have the biosphere, the biome, and then the biosphere. That means the entire globe, the entire world. Very good. So we're going to talk about relationships between populations, communities, and the ecosystem. When we talk about a relationship that happens between organisms of the same species, that means inside a population, inside populations, we call that intraspecific, intraspecific relationships. This is important because we're talking about things that happen inside the same inside a population. What happens when a elephant interacts with another elephant? What happens when a dog interacts with another dog? When a lion interacts with another lion? That's a type of in relationship. But when we're talking about relationships that occur between communities, that means organisms of different species, that means inside a community, we are talking about interspecific relationships. There it is. This is super important to remember that things can be between populations or can be between communities. That will make a whole difference about what we're saying. So you can pause the video here so you can copy those terms, and I'm going to continue with the video. Very good. This is the index. Okay. So just for you to remember, organisms that live together in a biological community, they constantly interact, right? We are saying that they need interaction. They feed on other organisms. They need shelter. They need a place to live, right? Well, these interactions includes competition for meeting for meeting their basic needs. They need food, they need shelter, they need mates, they need to reproduce themselves. So they are looking for their special someone, pretty much like you. And well, these relationships are important because they rely on these relationships to survive. This is super important. If you don't have somebody to mate with, you're going to survive because you're not getting some offspring. So this is important for all species. The things that happens between these populations is that they compete. So Actually, here, instead of community interaction, I will say that the better term from this will be populations interaction. Population interaction. Remember, this is called an interspecific relationship. And we will cross this because actually this will not be that accurate. Ooh. Okay, so the first type of interaction that we found here, it's competition. They compete. We're saying we need to find shelter and we need to find food and we need to find, well, most of the time these types of interactions in animals are because they're trying to find a female. Most of them fight between males. That's how it is. I mean, males are prettier on nature, and that's not fair. But well, they will fight for females. And well, in this type of thing, they're fighting for food or they're fighting for mates and all that stuff. But they can also fight with other species. And in those kinds, yes, we're talking about community. In this case, yes, it is community interaction. And remember that is called an intra-specific. For example, in this special case that you're seeing here on screen, this is two different species. We have, I think that's a cheetah fighting with a hyena for food because they found a zebra here. So what happens is that they are trying to use the resources available in the same place at the same time. So they need to compete. They're going to start fighting. If this happens between the same species as we have on the previous example, the one that we had here, you can see these are two hawks fighting. Well, this one is ecological interaction. Oh my God. Okay, so they're competing. I think competition is easy, right? They're just competing, they're fighting. That's it. Why they fight for? Because they need food, they need home, they need shelter, and they need females. And females are worth fighting in the animal kingdom. That's how it is. Very good. This type of community interaction called predation, this for sure only happens between different species. So this one is just for communities. It could happen between the same species, but it's very rare. That's not the common thing to happen. Usually, bigger organisms prey on smaller organisms. And predation, I mean, it comes from prey. They are looking for food. So yeah, somebody eats someone else. That's how the jungle life is. So you need to capture your prey and eat that prey. That was its purpose, to keep the circle of life going. Yes. So here we have some cheetahs eating a snake. Yeah. And on the other side here we have, I think that's a falcon, and this should be a smaller bird. I don't know which one it is. Okay, so I'm gonna make a pause here to remember. We have these two types of interactions first, where they are competing, and they can compete for food, for shelter, or for females. That's what happens here in competition. Or they can be preying on other organisms to get that food. So you can see that they're pretty much related. Another type of interaction, and this one occurs only between species. This is for sure community interaction. It's when we're talking about symbiosis. And do you remember then the symbiotic theory? I hope so, at least that you remember that name, endosymbiotic theory. And if you remember about the endosymbiotic theory, we said that this was there were bacteria working together to create a bigger cell. Okay, there it's called endo because, I mean, all these bacteria finish on the inside of another cell. That's why it calls endo. Endo means in or inside. But the word symbiotic refers for two organisms of different species working together, or living together, or living very closely together. That's the main definition. They are just occupying the same space at very much the same time. And so they have a very, very close relationship. And as you can see here within the symbiotic theory, this is like the clue for evolution. Now, I know that you have this biotic relationships activity where you had a video that explains about keystone organisms and all that stuff. I will open another attempt for you, because I think after watching this explanation, you're gonna be able to better answer that activity. Well, the thing with symbiosis is that it refers to a lot of different things. It can be positive, it can be neutral, or it can be negative. Because, I mean, interacting with somebody else sometimes gives you a benefit, but sometimes it takes your mental health and your time, and they're a very bad influence for you. So it's the same thing that happens in nature. And other times, well, they are just like neutral things. So for example, you're living with your parents. I mean, that's a symbiosis. These are two organisms living together and maintaining relationships. I mean, they provide you with shelter and with food for sure, and they give you love, and in return, well, you give them, I will say love, because I know you're wonderful boys and girls and people, but maybe you give them trouble too, right? Well, that's kind of symbiosis. And in these cases, I told you we have like very positive interactions, neutral, or some that are negative. Yeah. So each time of this interaction, each type of these interactions, yes, has a different name. So when we're talking about everybody getting benefits, yeah, they have, both of them have benefits from their interaction. It's called mutualism. You have it here, mutualism. That's it. Everybody wins. It's a win-win situation. Let's say, for example, flowers and bees. I mean, bees helps flowers to to reproduce, and bees seeing this pollen, and so they can create honey and all that stuff. So everybody wins here, right? We can say, like, for example, you and your pet needs shelter and needs food, and you're providing it with that, and it is giving you in return tons of love. So everybody wins here. So it's a win-win situation. We're talking about mutualism, and there are a lot of these examples in nature. There are other types of benefits, like, for example, I get a benefit, but the other person or organism is like, I don't mind. It's the same for me if you're here or if you're not. So that kind of relationship is called the commensalism. Commensalism, one gets benefit and the other doesn't. And what happens here, for example, sharks and the remora fish. The shark doesn't care about the remora fish. It's like, I don't care about you, like, need the topo way, something like that. And the remora fish is like, yeah, I know you don't know who I am, but I mean, whenever you eat, you're not eating the full thing. So you're, I mean, there are some leftovers. And if you don't want them, I will use them. I need them. I need protection and I need food. And being close to you gives me easy access to food. So we can live together. Why not? So you can think about that. Like, for example, your cat. I mean, you are living with your cat. Your cat's not living with you. The cat is like, I don't mind if you are here or not. I don't care. I can get my own food by myself. I don't need your petty claws. But you need the cat. You think, oh my God, I think cats are pretty and fun and so cute. And you think that they give you, I don't know, whatever they think that is love. But the truth is that they are just scratching you and they saying like, I don't mind your, well, that's a kind of a commensalism relationship. And finally, we have this parasitism. That is when we have someone getting a positive thing about this and the other one's getting affected, like for example you and your ex. No, okay, well, no, well, think about mosquitoes or think about lice or it's something like that. Those are parasites and this is parasitism. They are feeding on us and we don't like them. They spread diseases, they're uncomfortable, and or mice, for example, they can also have this kind of relationship with humanity, right? Like parasites. Well, those are the kind of symbiosis. We're still talking about people working, well, I mean, organisms living together, but they can have different types of interactions. I had some other examples here instead of the ones that I just made up. Well, mutualisms. Again, remember this is positive, positive. And for example, I have here the deers and birds. I mean, birds eat the ticks and fleas of the deer, and so they can live together happily ever after. Or we have the anemona and the clownfish. I mean, the clownfish gets shelter and protection, and the anemona, well, it gets like get rid of unwanted visitors, something like that. Another example could be here about commensalisms. Remember, commensalism, one is positive and the other one is neutral. So you can see that, for example, when two plants interact together, or maybe a fungi in a tree, sometimes the tree is like, I don't care about you. You can use the space stuff, and I don't mind. We can co-live and be together. And well, the example that I told you, the remoras and the sharks. I mean, the shark is like, I don't mind, and the remora is like, woo, I have here some protection and also free ride and some leftovers, and that's pretty cool. And an example of parasitism, I told you about mosquitoes. You know, they transmit some diseases and flies and all that stuff. I don't like this kind of. I look like that little cat that is like, ooh. Very good. So here you have another video. I'm not playing the video right now. You can watch it later. It's on the presentation. This is on Canvas. You can watch it. It explains a little bit better, maybe better than I did, about the ecological relationships. And that's it, Tiger. You made it. Thank you very much. So stay tuned for part 3 that I'm recording right now. But anyway, see you. Tons of love.